Joining me now is Anthony Clark. He's a candidate for Illinois' 7th Congressional District. He ran last time, so you might remember him on the program. He's gonna run this time as well. Anthony, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing today?
Good, good. So Anthony, I wanna get into your policies in a second, but let's talk a little bit about last cycle. So you ran, it was tough.
Right.
First of all, let's talk about the results, then let's talk about what you learned from it.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who don't know, I was nominated in 2018 alongside wonderful individuals like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others through Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats. And we accepted that nomination. I'm a special education teacher, disabled military veteran, founder and director of a nonprofit. But essentially, when we accepted that nomination, I'll be completely honest, and we felt because we had the message, because we were boots to the ground and we were actually involved in the work, and because we had dedicated believers in the movement, that's what we needed. We were not prepared for levels of corruption that exist within the establishment party, the pushback that we received from many individuals within the DCCC, the incumbent engaging in certain efforts to keep us silent and marginalize our efforts. So we learned a lot. We made a lot of mistakes, but based upon those mistakes that we did make, based upon the data that we now have, we almost got 30% of the vote, essentially not having an idea of what we were doing and learning on the fly and on the go. We think we're bigger, we know we're better, and we're ready to truly take it to the establishment in 2020 and win this thing.
So was it your opponent, if I remember right, that had the lawn signs that just said, hey, I'm the name you remember?
Correct. It was interesting. We actually held a community event where the incumbent came to the community event, looked me directly into my eyes and told me that I'm not going to win because I'm better than you. This was the incumbent speaking to me. I'm going to beat you because I have over 30 years of name recognition. So how that name recognition played out was his actual slogan was the name you know. And it also played out in them stealing thousands and thousands of dollars worth of our lawn signs because they wanted to prevent us from building greater name recognition.
Well, now when you run a second time, you got more name recognition, and so do the organizations that backed you. So it might be a totally different equation this day and age. So one more thing before the policies. You mentioned the corruption and how the establishment helped the incumbent Democrat you were running against. So can you give us any examples of that?
Definitely. So I think this happens across the nation. This is not only in Chicago or Illinois, but they prevent you from accessing viable voter data. So essentially, when we began our campaign, we had antiquated data. We had older data. We were essentially knocking on doors, not knowing for sure if these were registered voters or if these were the same individuals still within that residency. So we were dealing with that. It took them months for them to deny us access to ban and then provide us and allow us to obtain an alternative, a lesser alternative. So that was an issue. You also had to deal with being shut out essentially from within the local community, the local Democratic community. They were not calling for debates. We called for debates. We felt like in a true democracy, individuals running in front of the community and allow them to choose and allow them to decide for themselves who best to represent them. So we were essentially shut out from the local community. They felt that if the incumbent, did not agree to a debate, then we shouldn't have one. So we had to deal with those issues. And I think most importantly, they challenged our signatures. My mother, my father, Blanche and Ron, loved them to death. What's up, pops and moms? They came out there with us to collect thousands of signatures. We know they were valid. We knew we did everything the right way, but they caught us in the court system, challenging our signatures, challenging our petition collectors, and we ended up spending over $10,000 in over a 3-month span that took us away from the community just to get on the ballot.
And so I want the audience to understand it's actually a very common tactic by incumbents because they know that especially people like Anthony Clark who don't take corporate PAC money, don't have as much resources as the incumbent does, who drowns in corporate PAC money, who has all sorts of money because they're doing favors for those companies that they're getting money from. So they know, hey, if I challenge the guy in court, it doesn't have to be true, and it wasn't. Anthony made it onto the ballot because his signatures were valid. But all you got to do is put him in court. It wastes his time and it wastes his precious money. And so it helps the incumbents win. It's a really dirty trick, and unfortunately it happens all the time. Now, when in your plank, Anthony, you are against centrism. Now, that doesn't, like in Washington, they hate that kind of talk. They're like, oh no, centrism like Biden is awesome. If you could just work with Republicans, that would be wonderful. Correct. Are you telling me you don't want to work with Republicans like Trump and McConnell?
Yeah, I mean, again, let's be real here. Within any field, whether it's political, I'm a teacher by trade, you have to work with other individuals. But I think you have to identify a baseline of where individuals are coming from prior to engaging in conversations. I'm making I statements here. I don't want to overgeneralize or speak for anyone else, but I truly believe that this nation was built upon white supremacy. For a capitalistic society to remain and maintain itself, it has to depend upon poverty, unemployment, and oppression. And I think we see that throughout this nation. So when you say something along the lines of centrism, or when you have Democratic representatives state that we need to toe the middle line, we need to work together, yeah, that would be possibly fine if we're talking about the economy, okay? If you want more government, less government, so on and so forth. But when you're talking about human rights, when you're talking about my freedom as a member of an oppressed class, when you're talking about the rights of women to choose, because we see it's a war on women now with these anti-abortion legislations being pushed, there's no middle ground there. None of us are free until we all are free. And until we truly address white supremacy and understand how capitalism works and survives within white supremacy, and every institution is built upon white supremacy, we can't have a conversation. So you're either for my freedom or you're against it. There's no middle ground there.
So Anthony, you're a Democrat, but you're a progressive Democrat, and it sounds like, based on what I've read, that you're worried the Democratic Party is failing the Black community. So what's your take on that? Why do you say that?
Yeah, definitely, no question. Thanks for bringing that up and asking it. So I think it even goes beyond the Black community. Like, yes, I'm a Black man, but I think the Democratic Party overall is failing all oppressed communities, all oppressed classes, because again, how can you truly represent the people if you're also being influenced and purchased by, these corporations and these lobbyists and these top 1%ers that want to maintain a capitalistic society built upon oppression? So if you look throughout history within the 60s, when the Black community, if we're speaking about them specifically, transitioned from, the Republican to the Democratic Party under the New Deal, and many promises were made, it's impossible for me to look at a party or to look at a representative and believe that you truly are invested in my empowerment and the empowerment of others as a collective when we look at this world and see where we're at. I mean, take my district, for example. We're at 16.4% unemployment rate. We're at a 37% graduation rate. We have individuals leaving the state of Illinois, not only the city, in droves, just based upon the lack of opportunity. But yet you count on our votes. Yet many Democratic incumbents and the establishment, when it's time to run for re-election, that's when you see the town halls pop up. That's when you see individuals put out their slogans, the name you know. That's when they're present and they spend money. But why aren't you present on the daily basis when our mothers are suffering because they're losing children, when our families are struggling because they're not making a living wage, when individuals are unemployed or underemployed and have to work 3 or 4 jobs? Where are you then? So to me, any party that truly represents me and others of oppressed classes would truly be invested in empowering those oppressed classes of people. And I don't think the Democratic Party has done a good job in doing so. And as a responsibility to call it out and hold them accountable.
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody knows the website, voteanthonyclark.com. And by the way, you can always volunteer and donate, which makes a giant difference, especially when somebody's not taking corporate PAC money and fighting for their community like Anthony Clark is. Anthony, I forget, were you in Knock Down the House? I thought I saw you in some of the scenes.
Yes, my my debut. I had like a 10-second clip where you this big face of mine, and it was like Anthony Clark Chicago, and then it phased out. And then, yes, you saw me later in Knock Down the House. This is actually my second documentary. I was in another one as well on Stars called America to Me, episode 8. So it showed me teaching in my classroom. But yes, Cori Bush Amy Villela, Paula Jean Swearengin. They're great friends of mine. They're actually coming to Chicago this weekend for Knock Down the House screening and also to help me with my campaign.
And of course, the fourth person in that movie was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also part of the same movement. Obviously, Anthony was in, and now with her win, I think folks like Anthony have a lot better chance. Real quick, Anthony, and you have better name recognition, and you're fighting for the right things in the community. You can tell, yes, the rest of the media, I am biased. I favor progressives over people who haven't done anything in years and years, and whose slogan is "the name you know." What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. I'm not doing anything for you, but you know my name? Wow, what a great slogan. Anyway, last thing real quick. I know it's a big topic, but you like a lot of the Democratic Party say we just got to get rid of Trump and everything will be all right. Do you agree with that?
No, Trump is a symptom, and if you just focus on treating symptoms, the illness still remains. We have to address the root causes, and I think, again, that's part of the Democratic Party's mantra and practice, to just point fingers instead of looking ourselves in the mirror and understands how systems are in place. You know, we need single-payer health care. We need a Green New Deal. You know, we need to address the housing situation. Housing should be a human right. We could go on and on. You could check my platform, but no, Trump, if we just get rid of him, the illness remains, and there'll just be another individual and another individual that pushes and gaslights and tries to, you know, again, magnify white supremacy and push for our oppression.
All right, if you're watching this later on any of the platforms like YouTube and Facebook, all the links will be down below in the description box, so make sure you check that out. Anthony Clark, thank you so much for joining us again on the Young Turks.
Thank you, I appreciate it.